Hello everybody and welcome back to the JL Media YouTube channel. Today we are back with the Premier League preview. The international break has finished and I didn't think to do a video on it. I didn't think there was enough in the international break for us to cover and to go over. Obviously there was a few standout performances from Elliot Anderson, who got his first call up for England. I thought the backline in both games was really good. Obviously they kept 2 clean sheets for England and they obviously beat Serbia 5-0, which was a very good, very impressive performance from Thomas Tuchel's side. So that was positive from that aspect of England. I've seen obviously there was a couple of other national teams who done quite well in the break as well. So it was a good international break all round, but just not enough in it for me to do a video on. So I am back with the Premier League preview and we've got some good fixtures to go through to come back to. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. If you are new around here, I've done a couple of videos on this before, this similar sort of style of preview, and then we also do a review of the weekend as well, and we go through what we got right and what we got wrong. So yeah, that'll be coming out after the weekend's results. So without further ado, we'll get into this video. Please do feel free to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button if you are new around here, and we'll head into the first fixture this weekend. So heading into the first game this weekend is going to be on the Saturday at 12:30, and it's between Arsenal and Nottingham Forest at the Emirates Stadium. There has been one big incident that happened in the international break, and that was that Nuno Espirito Santos has been sacked at Nottingham Forest, and they've appointed Ange Postecoglou, or Ange Postecoglou is the favourite to be appointed. I'm not sure if he's already been appointed at the time of recording. I think the belief is that he's going to be in the dugout, and this will be his first game away to Arsenal. So obviously Postecoglou was the Spurs manager previous to this. He won the Europa League with Spurs last season, so there's a little bit of needle between Arsenal and Postecoglou. As for the replacement itself, I think Nuno Espirito Santos has done a lot of great work for Nottingham Forest. He took them from a position of struggling in the league and he's took them to European football. They finished 7th place last year. They were in the top 4 for long periods of the Premier League season, and the sacking has really come from his comments that he's made at the start of the season about the squad not being right. Maybe he's demanding some more signings, and obviously his relationship with the owner changing, and obviously Edu as well, who they've brought in. So yeah, I can understand from an owner's perspective that he's trying to regain control of the club and not allow the manager to take control of the situation. It's hard to know really from the outside what has actually happened, but I do think that he was doing a good job at Nottingham Forest, and I was really optimistic for Nottingham Forest this season to have a good year under Nuno, and I thought he was probably going to build on the season that they had last year and maybe have a good European run as well. So they've got Postecoglou in, and obviously they are in the Europa League, so Postecoglou won that last year with Tottenham. Let's see how he gets on. If this is his first game, it's a very difficult one. Arsenal, obviously, before the international break, they lost 1-0 to Liverpool, which was a big title sort of game, in my opinion. Even this early on in the season, that's the two teams that I would imagine would be up and competing for that league title. So for Arsenal to come out losers in that one is not a good result. However, the performance from Arsenal was still there. They looked really good defensively, and they just lacked a little bit of creativity up front, which on another day it could have been obviously a different story. And obviously Arteta did sort of go with a slightly lower defensive sort of setup against Liverpool, so maybe if he had have had a little bit more dynamism in the team, it would have been a different story all round. But for this game, I think it's going to be an Arsenal win. I think Nottingham Forest going forward as well are a little bit suspect, but that obviously could change with Postecoglou. We know he's a little bit more of an attacking style manager than what Nuno is. Nuno had set Nottingham Forest up to be quite a defensively solid setup and try and hit teams on the counter-attack, and that will, in my opinion, change with Postecoglou coming in. But I still fancy Arsenal for this game. Obviously, it's going to take Postecoglou a little while to adapt to the Nottingham Forest setup. It's slightly different to the one that he had at Spurs. So, yeah, it's a difficult opening game for him if this is his first game in the management role at Nottingham Forest. But I think Arsenal will get back on track after their defeat to Liverpool and start with a win after the international break. Okay then, so we've got 5 3 o'clock kickoffs to go through. The first one is the Battle of the South Coast. It's Bournemouth hosting Brighton at the Vitality Stadium. And Bournemouth have started the season off with 6 points from 3 games after they lost their opening game away at Anfield 4-2 against Liverpool. They have managed to beat Wolves 1-0 and they beat Tottenham 1-0 away from home as well. So that is a great result for Bournemouth, or great results for Bournemouth. Must give them confidence coming into this game, although they have had the international break in between, so obviously a couple of their players will have been away. But yeah, it's been a good start to the season for Bournemouth. Obviously, I didn't expect them to get anything from Liverpool, and even Tottenham was a bit of a surprising result, seeing how they had started the season under Thomas Frank. But it was really good performances and actually very solid from Bournemouth. Kept clean sheets in both of them games. They weren't scoring particularly a lot of goals. They only won the games 1-0. But I think always with Bournemouth's attack, they've always got very good, solid players up front, and they will always create chances. They had obviously an abundance of chances against Tottenham; they just weren't putting them away. But it was the scoreline that obviously makes the biggest difference and matters the most at the end of the game, and that was the fact that they won 1-0. As for Brighton, they picked up 4 points from their first 3 games. They drew with Fulham on the opening day at home. They lost away to Everton in their first game in the new stadium, and then they beat Manchester City, which was a massive result just before the international break. So, again, Brighton are still on a good form, and I expected Brighton to have a really good year this season under Fabian Hürzeler. He's had 1 season under his belt now in the Premier League, so he's used to that, and they brought in a lot of good signings. They may have lost a lot of crucial players from the squad, but Brighton always has a tendency to replace them players with young quality and obviously evolve them to the system that they want to play at that specific time, which is now under Hürzeler. So I've got confidence for Brighton to continue good form on this season. I think this game could be a draw. I think it's too difficult to separate the two sides. Like I say, they've both had big wins just before the international break, and now they've had a couple of weeks off. So it'll be interesting to see how they come back after the international break. But yeah, like I say, I like both these teams, Brighton and Bournemouth. 2 difficult places to go for an away team. So obviously Bournemouth will make the vitality and atmosphere. It's such a small, secluded stadium that the atmosphere really sticks in there. So yeah, I think it'll be a draw. It'll be a good game. I'll be obviously really excited to see how that one gets on. But yeah, looking forward to that one. I'll go with a draw. And next up for the 3 o'clock kickoffs is Crystal Palace hosting Sunderland at Selhurst Park, and Crystal Palace have started the season really well under Oliver Glasner. They picked up a 3-0 win away at Aston Villa just before the international break. Sunderland also started the season well, and they beat Brentford just before the international break 2-1 at home. And for this game, I believe obviously Crystal Palace will be without Ismail Assar. I think he picked up an injury in that Aston Villa game. And Sunderland should be going in at full strength. Obviously, they lost Mark Guiu to Chelsea because they recalled him after the situation with Liam Delap. So they have bought a couple of other players, obviously, on the deadline day. So I think they bought Brian Brobbery, which is a forward, and they brought Bertrand Traore. Both of them come from Ajax. So it'll be interesting to see if they obviously fit straight into the squad. Crystal Palace obviously kept a hold of Mark Guehi, which was fantastic for them. So I think that's going to help them solid at the back, keep them as obviously solid as they have been. Oliver Glasner's got a fantastic style at Crystal Palace, and I've really enjoyed watching them at the start of this season, and I'm expecting big things from them this year. Obviously they're in the Conference League. I think they can go very far in that, and I'm expecting them to have a good finish in the Premier League. So for this game I am going to go with a Crystal Palace win. Obviously Sunderland have played really well. I think their letdown was the away game to Burnley, and maybe that will be their shortfall this season is the away form. And Crystal Palace is going to be a difficult game for them to try and get anything from, but obviously it could be pleasantly surprised and seeing Sunderland pull out a great performance, continuing the form that they've started at this beginning of this season. So yeah, looking forward to this game again. It's another interesting one to see how each team's going to get on. I think all the games this weekend will be interesting because teams may be a bit slow coming back from international duty. They may have a couple of injuries that they have to deal with. Obviously, we just mentioned Crystal Palace could be without Ismail Assar. That's a crucial part to their attack. So, yeah, we'll see how this one gets on, but I am going to go with the Crystal Palace win. And the third 3 o'clock kickoff this weekend is Everton hosting Aston Villa at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. And this is a big game in regards to Aston Villa, because they've started the season winless and goalless as well. So they obviously picked up a 0-0 draw, which was their only point this season, on the first game against Newcastle, and since then they've lost both games, and they, like I say, they still haven't scored a goal this season. It's a difficult game for them going away to Everton, because they are playing really well. They've started the season strong, and obviously, as we said before, this is their second game at the new stadium. The first one they beat Brighton 2-0. So yeah, for me, it's hard to see past an Everton victory, or at least Everton getting a draw. And question marks have to be asked about Unai Emery, or are starting to be asked about Unai Emery at this point of the season. I had Aston Villa doing really good business in the summer and pushing on to the Champions League places in the league. And it's not to say that they can't do that. There's still plenty of time this season, but it's starting to look a little bit difficult for them to try and claw back that deficit from the teams that have started really well. For example, Everton have started really well. So yeah, question marks will be asked, and if they don't get a result in this game, even if they get a draw, I think the question marks will be asked, because they'll be winless in 4. I think Aston Villa really have to go and try and get a victory in this game, because the pressure will start to mount on them. So for me, I'm going to personally go with a draw. I've done this the last time. I've done this the last time with Everton Brighton, and I might have even said it, Brighton to win, and Everton played a blinder. And the form table doesn't lie, so I'm actually going to change that. I'm going to go with an Everton win. As much as Aston Villa really do need to get a win on the board, I just can't see past Everton at the moment, and I can't really predict Aston Villa to be doing anything until I can start to see that. I watched the Crystal Palace game, and I thought this has to be the point where Aston Villa turn it around and they have to do something, and it was just a flawless performance from Crystal Palace and really poor from Aston Villa. They did pick up in the second half. They had a few chances, some of which they should have put away, but they didn't, and yeah, they got beat 3-0, which is not a good result at all. So I'm going to go Everton to win, and I really like what David Moyes is doing at Everton at the moment. They're playing really well. This is a big game, obviously, for one man, Jack Grealish, because he's going back to, he's playing at Everton, but he's playing against Aston Villa, the club that sold him to Manchester City, and yeah, it sort of worked in parts. Towards the end, it really wasn't working, and I think this move for him has really, really benefited his career. He's got 2 assists against Brighton. He got 2 assists against Wolves, so he's really picking up some good form. Iliman Ndiaye is playing really well at the moment for Everton. Obviously, a big creative player in the middle of the park for them as well. So, full confidence in Everton to get the result. And like I say, I hope Aston Villa can turn the season around. I hope that this maybe is a game where they can get some form together and maybe score a couple of goals just to get the confidence flowing in the side, because it's disappointing to see Aston Villa, who's been such a consistent team over the last few seasons, to see them struggling at the start of this season. It's just, alarm bells are ringing a little bit 3 games into this season. Okay, and the fourth game of the 3 o'clock kickoffs this weekend is Fulham hosting Leeds at Craven Cottage, and Leeds have started the season off really well. Obviously Sunderland picked up 6 points from their first 3 games, so they were the best performing promoted side, and Leeds have picked up 4 points from their 3 games, with Burnley picking up 3 points. So Leeds obviously drew 0-0 with Newcastle. That was at Ellen Road just before the international break. They did beat Everton on the opening game. That was on the Monday night of the opening weekend. And in regards to Fulham, they have picked up 2 draws and 1 defeat in the opening 3 games. So they obviously drew to Brighton, as we mentioned before. They drew with Manchester United, and they lost to Chelsea in the West London derby, which obviously had a little bit of controversy surrounding it. So I think this is an opportunity for Fulham to pick up their first win of the season. Leeds will be a difficult customer. It won't be an easy 3 points for Fulham. They will have to work for it. And in fairness, I actually don't really want to predict Leeds to lose, because I think in watching the games that Leeds have played, I think they have been very impressive, and I would argue the most impressive promoted side to have come up this year. maybe the one that looks like they have the best chance of surviving relegation. They look really good defensively, and the games that they've played have been very difficult. Their opening games to the season was Everton at home, and David Moyes, as I said, has got them playing really well. They managed to keep a clean sheet against them and beat them 1-0. Then obviously they went away to Arsenal, and yes, it was quite a heavy defeat. But as I mentioned, obviously in the review of that weekend, that Arsenal can do that to any team, and it's not a surprise to see obviously Leeds struggling away at Arsenal. It's just one of them games, and they corrected that in the next one by getting a 0-0 draw at home to Newcastle as well. So obviously Newcastle normally have a very good attack. At the moment this season they've had their struggles in front of goal. But yeah, that's still obviously positive for Leeds to keep a clean sheet in that game and also to take a point from that game as well. So in my opinion, I think Leeds have been very impressive, and Fulham have also been very solid as well. They actually did have a good performance against Chelsea, especially in the second half, but unfortunately the game was sort of gone by that point. They were 2-0 down and the decisions had gone against them, and you could tell a little bit of the frustration obviously from Marco Silva, and it was sort of rubbing off on the players as well. So yeah, for me, I think it's going to be a Fulham win, but I think it's going to be a tight game, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Leeds maybe try and hold out for a draw in this game. Again, with the promoted sides, maybe their shortfall will be the away games that they're playing, and Craven Cottage is a difficult place to go, and Marco Silva will obviously want to get Fulham on the right track and start with their first win of this season against Leeds. So it's going to be another interesting game, and it could go either way. It's one that I'm probably not so confident on predicting. But yeah, I'll go with a Fulham win for this one. Okay. And the final 3 o'clock kickoff this weekend is Newcastle United hosting Wolverhampton Wanderers. And Newcastle were busy bees towards the end of the transfer window. They allowed Alexander Isak to get his move to Liverpool, and they brought in Nick Voltemada and Johan Wissa as the Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak replacements. So they've now got a couple of new strikers which will be bedded into the squad. And obviously, as for Wolverhampton Wanderers, they managed to keep hold of Jørgen Strand Larsen. I don't know if he's recovered from his injury at the moment. I haven't heard anything on that. Obviously, he was injured in their final game before the international break, and now they've had a couple of weeks off. And with this being the first game back, I don't know if he's going to be included in the squad or not. Newcastle was a team that wanted Jørgen Strand Larsen, but Wolves managed to keep hold of their man, and they stood strong. And that's obviously fair play to Wolverhampton Wanderers. As said, I thought they needed to keep hold of him if they want to have obviously a chance of surviving, because he's a massive goal threat. He had a very good season for them last year, and obviously I think when Vitor Pereira obviously gets the squad playing well again, he'll be a main focal point of that team. So for this one, obviously if Jørgen Strand Larsen's playing, and obviously it's a big if, but I think Wolverhampton Wanderers do have obviously a goal threat in the team. They have a chance of scoring a couple of goals against Newcastle. If he's not playing, I think it's very difficult for them, and obviously they've started the season with 3 defeats, so it's difficult to sort of give Wolves any hope in this game. Going away to Newcastle is not going to be an easy game. As for Newcastle, they are also winless. They have managed to pick up two points from obviously the draws against Aston Villa and Leeds, and they got beat to Liverpool, which was their first home game of the season. So they are going to be desperate for a win. Wolves are going to be desperate for a win. There's lots on the line in this game. I am going to go with a Newcastle win. I just think the strikers they've got, obviously there is rumours doing the rounds that Johan Wissa may be injured, so it may be that Nick Voltemada is thrown in right from the beginning. I would have liked to have seen Johan Wissa start the game and Nick Voltemada probably on the bench, just so that obviously he can see the game and get the experience. I think when you throw the new young players in who are coming from different leagues, it's a little bit difficult for them to adapt straight away. And obviously we've already seen with the likes of Sesko this year at Manchester United, Ruben Amorim hasn't started him straight away. It's because the managers want them to get used to the league, and you don't really want to set the young player off on a negative spin if he doesn't have a good first game, and that confidence starts to settle in. It's hard to sort of recover that. So I would have liked to have seen Johan Wissa start. If he is fit, I do think he will go with Johan Wissa. He's got that Premier League experience. He's obviously a little bit older than Nick Voltemada, so there's that as well that you've got to consider. At the moment when Newcastle are slightly struggling for results and struggling to score goals, you need someone with experience, and Johan Wissa is that man. He had a fantastic year at Brentford last season. So yeah, I'm assuming that he can possibly give Newcastle the same level of output and numbers in front of goal as well. And as for Wolves, yeah, it would be 4 defeats in 4 for them, and that is not the start of the season that obviously Wolves would have wanted. Vitor Pereira wouldn't have been wanting that, but there's plenty of time for them to turn it round. I think there's just a complete mix-up at the moment with the league table. Like we said, the promoted sides have started really well, and all of them you would have expected, maybe some people would have expected to be in and around the relegation zone, but the table will balance itself out as the season goes on. Obviously we just need to wait to see a couple of more results, give it a couple more weeks, and then obviously we'll have, I think once it gets to about 7 or 8 weeks in, we'll have a good idea, a rough idea of who will be in and around the European place of the relegation zone, and I believe that Wolves should be able to have enough quality in the squad to get out of that. And moving on to the 5:30 kickoff this Saturday, it's West Ham United hosting Tottenham Hotspur at the London Stadium. It's another London derby for West Ham. Obviously the last one they had was against Chelsea and they lost that 5-1, and they'll be hoping for a slightly better result this time against Tottenham, who, as we mentioned, they lost to Bournemouth. They started the season perfectly, 2 wins from 2, no goals conceded. They were up competing at the top of the league with Arsenal and Liverpool, and yeah, they felt with defeat against Bournemouth. It wasn't the performance that Thomas Frank would have wanted. As I said, Bournemouth were really dominant in the game. Tottenham didn't have a lot of chances at all, so they'll be hoping for a slightly better result. Obviously they have brought in Randall Colomuani and Xavi Simons, so that's 2 very creative players in positions that they needed to strengthen. Obviously James Maddison seems to be out for a long time, and Dominic Solanke had a setback with his injury, so yeah, they had been playing Richarlison, but Colomuani offers a little bit of competition for Richarlison in that position. So great acquisitions from Tottenham there. West Ham, just before the international break, it was looking really rough for them at the start of this season, and Graham Potter was coming under a lot of pressure, and they got a fantastic result away at Nottingham Forest, a 3-0 win. That was absolutely sensational. So yeah, credit to them, didn't see that coming from anywhere. And yeah, obviously Callum Wilson got on the score sheet, his first goal for West Ham. Lucas Paqueta obviously cancelled the noise around him making a move away to Aston Villa. So as for West Ham in this game, I think it's going to be difficult for them. I think they'll probably take a point, but I'm going to go with a Tottenham win. I think they're going to bounce back. They had a really good start of the season, and yeah, it's just the confidence will come from West Ham in this game because they got a fantastic win, but the international break just come at the wrong time for them. If they had have got beat of Nottingham Forest, you probably would have said that the international break was coming at the right time, because it would have given them a chance to refresh, think over a few things, and come back after the international break with a positive mindset. They just picked up their first win, and it was a massive one. And then they had the break, and now they've got to get back into that mindset. It's really difficult. And obviously for Tottenham, like we say, they picked up 2 wins, then lost, then had the international, now they're coming back. So it's just 2 contrasting teams, and I'm going to go with a Tottenham win on that basis. I do think Tottenham have slightly more quality than West Ham as well in the teams. Obviously, I'm hoping that Xavi Simons will get his debut. Maybe we'll see, obviously, Colomuani have a little cameo as well. I think you'll probably go with Richarlison from the start. But I think obviously Colomuani will have to come on. He's only a loan signing, so obviously maybe a stipulation in there that he has to play a certain amount of games. But yeah, I'm excited to see how Tottenham line up, especially if Xavi Simons does start, because he's a fantastic player and a fantastic signing for Spurs. Okay then, and we've got the 8 o'clock kickoff on the Saturday, so the first time we've had an 8 o'clock kickoff this season. It's Brentford hosting Chelsea at the G-Tech Community Stadium, and Brentford had a great win against Aston Villa, and then a poor defeats to Nottingham Forest and to Sunderland. Probably the Nottingham Forest one you could expect. It was the first game of the season. Obviously, it was at the City Ground, so a great atmosphere there. And yeah, Brentford just didn't really turn up to that game. But then they got a great win against Aston Villa in the second game and kept a clean sheet. Dango Ouattara scored in his debut. And then they had an impressive performance against Sunderland. They were actually very dominant in the game, had lots of chances, had a couple of goals ruled out, missed a penalty, and unfortunately conceded in the final minutes. And obviously that resulted in Sunderland getting the 3 points and Brentford having to lose the game after going 1-0 up in the game with only 10-15 minutes left to go, and you would have thought that Brentford could have held on at that point to get the 3 points. But they didn't, and now they've got a difficult opposition hosting Chelsea, who started the season unbeaten. They picked up a draw against Crystal Palace, they then went and beat West Ham, and they went and beat Fulham. So they are starting the season very well. I expected Chelsea to be in and around, possibly an outside chance of being in a title race. And then after the performance against Crystal Palace, it was a little bit ropey, and I thought maybe they were going to be just outside the title race, but still in and around the top four. And yeah, they've picked up ever since then with two fantastic wins. The 5-1 win against West Ham, they were exceptional. And the 2-0 win against Fulham, like I say, they've done enough to get the win. I thought Fulham played well, arguably slightly better than Chelsea in the game, but it was the clinical edge that Chelsea had that obviously got them that 3 points. And I think that Chelsea again will have a clinical edge in this game. I think Brentford's, problems this season may be going forward. They've lost Brian Mbeumo and Yohan Wissa, which is two massive losses to the side in terms of their attacking output. They were very, very key parts of Brentford's season last year, and obviously they've had to replace them this season, but it's looking very difficult for Brentford. And obviously, as well as that, losing your manager in Thomas Frank and Keith Andrews, having them shoes to fill, it's big pressure on them. I do think Brentford will put up a fight in the game, but I think Chelsea will ultimately have enough to get through the game and to get the 3 points. So I'll go with a Chelsea win for that one. Okay then, and we've got two games on the Sunday. The first one is a 2 o'clock kickoff, and it's Burnley hosting Liverpool at Turf Moor. And obviously Burnley's first game at Turf Moor this season, they did beat Sunderland, and Liverpool's first away game, they beat Newcastle 3-2. And Liverpool also took Newcastle's centre forward. They managed to get their man Alexander Isak through the door, and yeah, that's a fantastic signing for Liverpool. It just adds so much more quality to their attack already than what they've got. Obviously Salah, Gakpo, Wirtz, Ekitike, who started the season on fire as well. So yeah, I think it's obviously looking a pretty one-sided affair on the basis that Liverpool should beat Burnley. And I don't know if it's going to be that clear-cut. Obviously, we've seen Liverpool looked a little bit more defensively solid against Arsenal in the game just before the international break, but then they didn't have so much going forward. And I don't know if that was because Arsenal were obviously very solid. They did put up a good fight and had a good performance in that game at Anfield as well. But as for Burnley, I think their game plan is got to be the same as what it has been for a lot of the games this season. It's got to be to try and be as solid as you can at the back and hit teams on the counter-attack if the opportunity's there. I think the game could be quite open for them if Liverpool continue to go with the style that they have done for the opening few games of the season. So there will be opportunities for Burnley to try and cause an upset in this game. I think I'm going to go with the Liverpool win. I think I'd be silly if I wasn't going to go with that. It'd be interesting to see if Alexander Isak gets his debut, or at least comes on off the bench, because he was away with Sweden for the international duty and he did come off the bench in their second game, didn't appear at all in the first game, and obviously he has had a lack of pre-season, so there will be struggles with fitness there, and he did obviously have his injury problems at Newcastle, so obviously that could be an issue for Liverpool as well. But it was a lot of money to spend on him, and they'll be hoping for a big return this season. Like I say, I think Liverpool's intentions will be to retain the Premier League title, and they'll want to push on and go for the Champions League title as well. So massive year for them. First game back, it'll be a big one at Turf Moor, and I'm going to go with them to win. But I would like to see Burnley try and put up a little bit of a fight in that game. And obviously, yeah, maybe try and cause an upset, as Liverpool obviously haven't been defeated this season so far. Okay then, and the final game on the Sunday is the Manchester Derby. It's the 4:30 kickoff, and Manchester City are currently sitting on 3 points. Manchester United are sitting on 4 points. So Manchester United are currently above Manchester City in the table, and I didn't think I'd be saying that at the start of the season. I thought Manchester City would have really kicked on and pushed either Liverpool or Arsenal for the title. And yeah, I thought maybe Manchester United might have started the season slow, although I expected them to have a much better season than last year. Under Ruben Amorim, I think obviously his system's really starting to set in. Manchester United had success over Manchester City last season. They did beat them at the Etihad Stadium, obviously thanks to an Amad Diallo late cameo. So maybe we could see something similar to that again. Personally, I don't think So I think it's going to be a Manchester City when I think they have to come back, obviously after that poor defeat to Brighton, and the defeat to Tottenham as well. They've got to really sort of get back to that performance against Wolves, because that was really solid from them, and that was the opening day. And I thought, looking at the base of that, I thought, yeah, they look like Premier League champions. And obviously, it's only one game in, and you have to evaluate it over a sustained period of time. And then the following two games have really made me rethink and obviously look at that and go, Manchester City, there's still areas there for them to improve on, and obviously Pep Guardiola has to figure that out. He'll have had time to think over the international break, and I think this is a perfect game for them to come back to against Manchester United. There's a lot on the line, the Manchester derby. It's always an interesting game, an entertaining game, so I am going to go with the Manchester City win. Like I say, Manchester United have started well. They picked up that draw against Fulham and the victory against Burnley. Haven't necessarily been convincing in the performances, although yeah, against Burnley they were the better side, but they just weren't taking their chances, and obviously they got that late penalty which Bruno Fernandes did convert. So yeah, I still think Manchester United have a chance in this game. There's an opportunity for them to upset, but I'd like to think that Manchester City have enough in the tank to try and get the result at home at the Etihad Stadium. 4:30 on the Sunday. I'll definitely be tuning into this one to see how each team gets on. Okay then, so that is the preview for this weekend's matches. Like I say, I will be coming out with a review obviously once the fixtures are all done, so that'll probably be hopefully up and out on Monday. So yeah, I think it's interesting this weekend. There's some crucial fixtures. Some teams really need to get a win on the board. Some teams are going to look to continue the momentum that they've started at this season. But yeah, the Premier League, can't wait to have it back. As I said, the international break is always, there's not too much going on in it, and I just, like I said, I didn't think there was enough from England to put a separate video out, but obviously it was worth mentioning the fact that they did get 2 wins from 2, and yeah, they looked really good in that Serbia game, the most recent one. So let's hope that obviously that form can continue going into the World Cup. Obviously England will be one of the favourites to go far into that competition alongside the likes of France, Portugal, Argentina, Spain. So there's lots of competition for the World Cup, but the Premier League football's back, and that's the most important thing. We love a bit of Premier League content on this channel, and obviously I'm here to deliver that for yourself. So thank you very much for tuning in. If you're still listening at this point of the video, do feel free to hit the like button and the subscribe button, and yeah, until the next one, I'll catch you later.